My highlight, without question, has been getting to know the entire LMU family. I knew a lot about LMU before I got here, and I always revered it because of the many accomplishments associated with the university. But getting to know the people who do the work, our staff, our faculty, and then of course our student body, and then the alums, has just been a treasure and a great joy. Biggest lesson would be, I don't know if it's a lesson, it's more an observation. I think the best thing I have learned is also the happiest that I have learned, and that is that with the current generation of young people, if I or anybody associated with me or anybody anywhere has one of those moments where you're waking up in the morning or something, you say, oh gosh, I think I might be leaving the earth right now, it's good. We have the best generation coming that has ever walked the earth. And the LMU students very well embody that. So I like to say if I'm having a bad day in the office, I can fix it. I just go across campus, talk with like 3 to 5 students, come back, and I almost float back in a cloud because it's just so, the students are so smart, so caring about one another, so optimistic, so ready for the world. I just feel great about them. So I think that's what I share the most when people ask, what's going on? And we have quite a few goals. A lot of them are built around what we often call global imagination. And people usually just focus on the global part, forgetting that's an adjective. And it's the imagination part that's important. But it has components. And one is we must be more global. This is not just about tomorrow, it's about today. The world is so interconnected, hyper-connected, in ways for which we're not necessarily evolved. You know, we evolved in caves with like 20, 30 people, and now we're typically in groups a little larger than that, particularly on, say, social media. So we have to be more global in everything here. The coordination of our curriculum, our study abroad opportunities have to be more spectral in terms of their locations on the earth. We have to spend more time abroad. We have to have more international students, international faculty, international visitors here. I can talk about the dog for hours. He's really soft. He's doing his first shed, so now when you rub him, you start to get all these little clouds of puffy white hair, and it's really cool, unless you breathe it. He's fun to be with. He learns extremely quickly. We buy him these puzzles, and it'll say, we'll tantalize your dog for hours and hours, and usually by the 30th second, he's solved it. We wanted to give him motivational quotes because they're helpful quotes, tips during the semester. And we're using Jackson because, well, I've always said, like when I first taught a class that used 100% screens and video and no chalk, this was like 1990 or so when we always used chalk. I used to tell people I do it because this is a portal into students' beings and minds. Well, a dog and social media is a portal to everybody. I mean, there's very few people who hate dogs. There might be like 2 of them. So Jackson is kind of a spokesperson for the good and for the modest, how one might do better. I played in a band when I was at the edge of high school. I think I was right before I got out, and then all through my college years, including a couple of years in grad school. And we were professional musicians. We toured around a lot in the tri-state area of Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, sometimes Illinois, West Virginia. I sang, and then I played some guitar while other folks sang, because you're playing 4 or 5 hours a night, and you can't sing 5 hours a day or you go. So since then, I've always been musically active, but not as active as I should be. When I did some podcasts in my previous job, I decided that I would reactivate musically by forcing myself to do a soundtrack to each one. And through one of those, I I entered a contest, and it was an international contest, and I won the most popular track. So that really inspired me to do more, and now I do things in my ample spare time, and record and compose and play around. It's a lot of fun. Let me just do like 2 or 3. One, that women can't do math. Another one is that people will say, well, I can't do math. I don't have a mathematical mind. I'll say, well, are you sure? Well, I used to be good at this, and then I really did well in that. And then all of a sudden when I got to this, well, what happened was they had a bad teacher. So math is really built from and on the mind and the way we think. It's open to everybody. So these crazy cultural notions that tend to sift women out of the picture through the way we act and our expectations, the sense that an individual can't do math, they're just wrong. And I know this from experience. Another thing, final thing I'll mention is just that what we do as mathematicians. A lot of people think it's all about numbers. Well, the system of numbers and the way they behave begs a lot of philosophical questions, of course. But one thing you can do is abstract those behaviors, and then with those abstractions, messing with them, prove theorems that help us understand more about our world, our physical world, and other worlds. So we met when the Powerball lottery was at that time at a record high, and I was on TV a lot because they have different ways of describing combinatorial phenomena that are, I think, more accessible than the way they're typically described. So they had assigned her the story, and as she tells the story, she was like, I'm not going to interview a mathematician. That's just not going to happen in my story. Let me go interview a 7-Eleven manager or somebody who knows more about it. And then they were telling me, oh, Carol Costello is going to interview you. And I'm like, who's that? I don't even care, no. Because I've been on all morning since like 5 and stuff. And then this was like 4 in the afternoon. So the interview went really well, and we hit it off right away. And then after that, it was history. She stalked me, and then eventually I proposed to her and we got married. Well, she's just fun to be with. She's obviously very bright and independent in good ways. The journalistic part is strange. You know journalists, you know how bizarre they are. That's a joke. I've learned so much about journalists, and despite what some persons say, their zeal for the truth, their passion to do anything that is required to help others understand what is going on, that's Carol's main gig. Her dedication is extraordinary. She's constantly, I tease her and say she's information picking. So in the middle of the night, she wakes up and checks everything. The only problem with it is, yeah, on Sunday she has to read the entire New York Times, so we don't get to spend the time together we want. And I never can tell her anything that she doesn't know. So I'll be like, did you know Otani almost pitched it perfectly? Yeah, I can't believe that so-and-so broke it up. And it's like, oh, stop that. How do you have to know everything? So that's what I like most about her, just being with her, her tenacity, and also the way she fights for the common good. She's very genuine.